What's happening, everybody? Tom Garman from Guitar Antihero here, and today we're talking about something that's very important to most players. In my opinion, should be very important to every guitar player, and that's the notion of stylistic development and being who you really are and finding your own unique voice with the instrument. Now, like most things related to our playing, on the face of this seems pretty straight ahead and simple, but there's really more going on than what we may see at first glance. Okay, most of us approach this from some standpoint of thinking, well, I like such and such, I like this group of players, I'm just going to play like that. That's not how that usually goes. In fact, my experience has been that's never really how it goes, at least long term. I remember a few years back reading an interview with Zakk Wylde where he was talking about when he first started with Ozzy, and Ozzy's advice to him was to just be himself. And in the interview, Wylde said, well, that's really tough to do when you don't know who you are. And that's very true. You know, I think most of us miss that when we set out to develop our own stylistic sense with the instrument. I was talking about this to a private student of mine the other day, and I was telling her how, you know, when I was in high school, I really kind of shied away from this pentatonic-based, more conventional way of playing. I wanted to play more like, I don't know, somebody like Marty Friedman, for example. You know, that sounded cooler to me. That's what I wanted to do. I thought the pentatonic and blues scale-based stuff was more for the old guys that worship Eric Clapton or whatever, and I didn't want to do it. So I consciously tried to veer away from that, but I kept sort of coming back to it. And then several years later, a player who I have a lot of respect for, he was a good friend and a sort of mentor of mine, he's a bass guitar player, best fucking bass player you ever hear, you know. Sat in one time on a rehearsal that we're having for this band that we just threw together, just a cover set for somebody's birthday, right? And he says to me, quote, I think you missed your mark with this heavy metal shit. You should have been a blues guitar player. And I really took that to heart. You know, I mean, like I said, I had a lot of respect for the guy. He's a friend of mine, and when, you know, a 500-pound black man who's the best bass player you've ever heard, who has grown up with this style of music, tells you that, you tend to believe it, okay? And what I found was the more I embraced what was naturally sort of occurring for me stylistically, the better I was able to mold that into other things I wanted to do, right? So rather than running away from the more conventional stuff, or what I thought was more conventional, instead I went the other way and went into it, embraced it more, and was able to twist it around and do something a little bit different with it. Most of us think, again, that we're just going to start playing out some certain way that we like, and that's not how it goes, okay? We have to have a set of foundational things there first before we can do that, because here's the truth about style. It's directly proportionate to and a direct result of the foundation, the technique, and the understanding that we have about other concepts. So what that means is, the more we broaden our base, the more we learn new things, the more we're able to apply different things, and the better we understand the things we do know, the more different that style could end up being, right? I think that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So my advice to my student the other day is the same thing that I'm going to give you here. If you find yourself gravitating towards something stylistically that you don't really think you like or you don't really want to do, don't fight it. Go with it. Because what I found was, when I stopped fighting what was more natural to me, I was able to work with it better. So now I can maybe take some pentatonic phrases that are somewhat standard, but twist them around so they don't just sound like what everybody else is doing, rather than trying to force my playing into something that it's just never going to be, right? It's the stylistic equivalent of trying to force the square peg into the proverbial round hole. It usually doesn't work, and it doesn't feel natural. It usually feels and sounds forced, and it's just not a good time for everybody. Okay, so the takeaway here is go with what your hands and your ears and your heart are leading you to do. Don't reject it just because you don't think this is what you want to do at that particular time. Okay, go with it, and then when you become more comfortable with it, you can change things around more to what you think you want, and you have more freedom to experiment then within those boundaries. And I say boundaries because anytime we're doing something that's genre specific, anytime we're doing anything within a particular style, we are also bound by the limits of that particular genre or style. okay? So anytime we move out of one proverbial box here, we automatically put ourselves into another box. The thing is to keep moving around from box to box and understand that it's okay to be inside a box, all right? Do what's natural, don't fight it, go with it. That's what Taoism teaches us, and it's a good way to live your life in general, and it can really help with your guitar playing too, okay? So be comfortable in your own skin when you find that, and it's probably going to take a while, especially if you're just starting out. You might find that your interests are going to change. If you're doing anything you should be doing, your interests will change. Doesn't mean you won't like the stuff that you liked at first, but you're going to be able to see it through a different set of eyes and hear it through a different set of ears when you gain more experience and more ability with things you're able to do yourself, okay? So keep at it. Don't reject what's coming to you, but see how well you can work with whatever you've got to work with, all right? Once again, visit guitarantihero.com for more info on being the biggest, baddest, and best guitar player you can be on your own terms for you. And make sure to hit me up on Twitter at guitarantihero with any questions or comments, all right? Links are in the description below. See ya.